Now, All Elite Wrestling makes its Australian debut with AEW Grand Slam Australia. That's going to be live from the Brisbane Entertainment Centre Saturday, 15th of February. One of the stars of AEW is Australia's greatest pro wrestling export. He's won major titles in both AEW and the WWE, and he's been good enough to join me today on SEN. Buddy Matthews, thank you for jumping on board.
Thank you very much. And it was a fantastic introduction, so I appreciate it.
Now, man, I'm a stats guy, so I went and looked up the last time you were at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre to see if you ever wrestled in that arena, and it was during your time in the WWE. You teamed up with Big E and Kofi Kingston to face Randy Orton and FTR, the Revival at the time. So it seems like every time you wrestle down under, it's always a big moment, marquee kind of match. So are you looking forward to doing that again when you make the trip for Grand Slam?
Absolutely. I feel like every time that bell rings and I'm involved, it's going to be a good match. So that's pumping my own air in my own tires there. But yeah, it's I've been pretty lucky in my career to have traveled the world, and there's no fans like Australian wrestling fans. So I've done the MCG back in 2018. Just did, I think believe it was 2019 that match took place. So
Good spot. Yeah, well done.
2025. Yeah, 2025, and hopefully do it all over again and get that itch scratched because, like I said, I've had the opportunity to wrestle in front of the Australian fans before, and it makes you want it. And I'm going to scratch that itch again in February.
Now, what I've been loving recently is you, along with the House of Black, you've been a staple of AEW Collision, but we've been seeing you guys a bit more regularly on Dynamite recently. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the chaos that's been happening with AEW champion John Moxley and the Death Riders just running right over the company, because it does seem like no one is safe on a Wednesday night on ESPN.
Yeah, you're not really safe in AEW in general. There's so many personalities walking around, but with the Death Riders especially, they've definitely think that they're a virus in the company, and they think that they're curing, but everyone else believes they're a virus. But the House of Black, we take care of business when it's our business, and they stayed away from us, so we'll stay away from them. You never know. We could cross paths. We could cross paths in February, in Brisbane. So you just never know. But yeah, there's chaos everywhere and everywhere. So we're going to just keep our nose out of our business as long as they keep their nose out of ours. So we'll see what happens.
I got to say, man, it's been a bit of a banner year for you in AEW, because you were part of All In London in a vicious four-way ladder match for the Trios title. There was a brutal street fight you guys had against Jay Lethal, Jeff Jarrett, and Mark Briscoe. You even had a chance at winning the TNT Championship when you took on Hall of Famer Adam Copeland, and you're coming off a win at AEW's last pay-per-view Full Gear. I mean, 2024 has been a huge one for Buddy Matthews. So what's in your sights for, well, I know obviously 2024 isn't finished, but what's in the sights for 2025? Do you start planning now, or do you still just want to get through this year unscathed?
Get through this year unscathed. I think that I'm going to put a close on this year. It was a successful year, but not as successful as I would personally like it. Obviously we tried to regain the trios titles as the House of Black. That didn't work out, obviously, in Wembley. But 2025 is it's a brand new year, brand new slate. So I'm just kind of looking forward to being past that ball if given the opportunity. I feel like my resume speaks for itself. When that bell rings, there's hardly anyone on the planet that can keep up with me. I feel like my resume has proved that I am one of the best in the world. So I just want to get out there, man, throw that ball to me and I'll run. But I can only do so much. So I feel like 2025 could be a good year. I want it to be a good year. And, I'm hoping it's a good year. So, but, it'd be great in February to start off that year with a big win over a substantial name.
You've had a tremendous career, like here in Australia, but in the States, I mean, you've really opened doors, and there are so many Australians that are doing some great things overseas. So many different promotions, and someone that's really sort of jumped out at me in the past year or so has been Kyle Fletcher. I mean, he's a dude that I always pictured was just, a tag team guy. Like every time I've seen him in PWA here in Australia or at the Thornbury Theatre teaming up with Will Ospreay, I mean, it's crazy what he's doing now. And does it sort of make you proud that you were the guy? I mean, I remember when you first burst onto the scene when you were in WWE and NXT, like the mere fact I'm like, oh my God, there's a dude from Melbourne that's actually made it overseas, making it to TV, making all this. Then you want the tag team titles, like, oh God, he's actually got gold while he's there too. Then you got the main roster call up. It's like, wow, he's got singles gold. It's so much stuff just kept happening. And now it's almost like, oh yeah, there's another Aussie doing this, doing that. I mean, does it make you proud that you were the guy that sort of made everyone in the States sort of go, hang on, there's some really good talent on the other end of the world?
Yeah, absolutely, and I definitely hold that very close to me. It's like I was pretty much the first one to kick that door open and really open their eyes on an international way of that Australia has talent. So definitely hold that very close to me. But yeah, man, like people like Kyle, like, Tony, and then in the other company, we have Bronson, we have, my wife, Rhea, like, they're just killing it. So I do hold pride that I did open that door, but, like I can only open the door, they need to walk through it. And it's good to see that they're walking. Well, they're not even walking, they're running now. So it's awesome. But to get that little bit of credit that I was the one that opened the door is pretty cool.
I should probably point out too that Robbie Eagles is also doing some good things in New Japan, because if he hears this and I don't mention him, he'll probably get really annoyed at me. But you were part of a real golden age of Australian wrestling, and the business is really thriving down here. I mean, we are seeing a new guard come through, but guys like Slex, Adam Brooks, Mikey Broderick, Rocky Monero, they're still going strong. But this new crop of guys like Tommy Knight, Ricky South, Edward Dusk, even the tag team division is just so fresh. I mean, you've still got guys like the Untouchables around, but teams like the Pareja are just beating down the door. And how would you say like the scene here in Australia is traveling compared to, when you were a regular on the around the Indies here?
Yeah, I think it's just the changing of the guard in a way. It's like when I was around, it was when I first started, like, when I was like 13, I was hovering around. Like those guys were around then, like kind of starting their career, and then kind of when I hit the scene myself, like those guys were still around, and it just felt like there was a really long period where it was just the same guys circulating, and it wasn't really growing. It was the same matches, and like that's why it didn't really grow, because it wasn't really growing a new talent base. Mm-hmm. And so now that it's kind of like expanded, and we're getting in like the newer faces like the Pareja that are really kind of, opening people's eyes and starting to realize. And those kids, like, I work with them very, very closely as well. So they came down to Florida and they worked with Malachi, they worked with Rhea, they worked with myself, just to really kind of, hone their skills. And, the problem with Australian wrestling is, as much as it's grown, is that it's a small bubble, and when they need to realize that it's not just what now isn't the be all end all, and you really need to be open to growth. And when you're open to growth, you'll realize that there's so many different directions you can go with just little details, which completely change the aspect of the storytelling and the performance in general. So it's, as long as, that's probably my advice to everyone, but it's the ones that really branching out are the ones that are starting to look at wrestling and the performance from a different angle.
Yeah, 100% spot on there. And I've had the privilege of seeing the Pareja live, and even some of the other great teams in Australia, like the Natural Classics is doing some good stuff in Japan. It's good to see that, people aren't just, it's long gone are the days where we just do a show every couple of months at the Dragonfly and that's about that. And we try and figure out what we're going to do next month. But before I let you go, buddy, I got to ask you, while you're back in Oz, do you have a list of things that you've got to take back home to the States? I mean, will your luggage be full of, shapes and Tim Tams and Cadbury favorites and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I'll drop a little secret. So every time I come here, I normally, the night before I get on my international flight, I normally hit up like a Coles or a Safeway. I think you call it Woolworths now. Yes. But I just look at all the blocks of chocolate that, that you guys have, because there's just so many. Every time I come back, there's like a new collection of Cadbury chocolate blocks. So I just load up. Like I'm literally dropping $400 or $500, and then I just fill my suitcase up. Upstairs, I have like a big theater room with this coffee table refrigerator, and if you open that up, it looks like a 2005 DVD collection of just chocolate blocks of just different sorts. So there's no chocolate better than Australian chocolate, and that's coming from me. That's well traveled. Some Dubai chocolate is amazing, but you know, to have just Cadbury, at whenever you want it over here is just amazing. And your ice cream's insane too. If I could bring Maxi Bonds back, I would. If I could bring back party pies and sausage rolls, I would. I'm just going to try and figure out how to do that. And I was actually doing cardio this morning, thinking, how can I get some party pies and sausage rolls back? So I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll let you know if I do.
I'll tell you what, we'll put our heads together and figure out a way to do that. I also approve, and I know there's a lot of people that will be listening to this too, the refrigerated chocolate. It is. I know there are some people that would scorn us saying that, but at least we know its proper place. So I approve of that one, buddy. But man,
well, I let it rest. I let it rest just a little bit.
Well, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, and make sure you get your tickets to Grand Slam Australia, available at ticketek.com.au.